Ever since I was a kid, I was always really good when it came to saving money. And I even remember this one time when my parents they needed money for something, so I was able to help out and actually lend them some money. And I was still in high school back then. So when I think about this, it was a weird situation. But yeah, I think I've only had this one time in my life when I had to borrow money from someone else. Would always pay upfront, always cash. If of course it's back when I was a kid. I mean, obviously you only have cash, but always had the money to support my lifestyle and be financially independent. And I don't think I never was in a situation where if things went bad, I would be screwed. Like my general approach to life is even if the current financial situations goes just downhill, I lose my job or basically I have no income for the next few months, I'll be good. I can rely on my savings and basically continue on living as nothing has happened until of course I find a solution to the situation. So there's always this buffer of at least a few months worth of savings. So this is what I'm going to be sharing with you today, just my own experience. It's going to be something that I find works really well and strategies that I've been using for the past 2 decades. Yeah, I know I look young, but yeah. Anyways, my name is Nikki and I'm a certified fitness coach. And due to the nature of the job that I'm doing and basically having some good months and some bad months, you have to be really good in terms of savings because you have to be prepared for those bad months and you don't know how long you're going to be lasting. So here are my favorite strategies when it comes to saving money. And the first one, pretty straightforward, no brainer there. Just keep track of your spending and your income to have an idea of how much you're actually saving and basically have an idea of if it's even possible for you to be saving money. Because if you don't know what's happening with your income, then how the hell are you supposed to even save money? It doesn't have to be super complicated. Personally, I use a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet, but you can just have the bank do this for you. Like some banks, they offer this feature so you can see a breakdown of your monthly spend, how much you saved, how much money did you put in the bank or in that specific account, and so on. Just having a general breakdown, have enough idea of what is really going on. This is super key, and without this, it's kind of like you're going to the forest without a map. I mean, it could turn out great, but most likely you're going to get lost and you're not going to achieve anything. Same thing with your financial freedom. So again, like you don't have to make it super complicated. Like even if you want to, you can use a notebook and just keeping track of everything. You use a spreadsheet. There are apps for this and so on. Personally, the way I do it is I have separate columns. So I have the income column, then I have the expenditure broken down into simple things like, for example, food, groceries. There's also rent and related expenses, and there's also clothing and a couple of other things basically broken in. I'm breaking down the spending through different things that I'm focusing on, but you can just group it all together depending on what works for you. Also, it's a good idea to keep track of your credits and if you owe someone money or if they owe you money. So again, I do this in the spreadsheet, but there's different ways to do it. That's the first point, and I feel like this is the pretty much the most important thing you have to do in order to get any kind of financial freedom. So the next point that would actually come into the savings part, it's pretty simple and something that I've been doing for a very long period of time, and I feel like this is the simplest way to be saving money. Here's the thing. You set aside 10 to 30% of your income and you save it every single month. You can automate the process. So if the money goes through a bank, you can just have it 10% of your income of your paycheck being transferred into a separate account. If you're getting paid in cash, you can just stuck it under the mattress. Doesn't really matter what. Unless you're in a position where you're really struggling to just find food to eat, trust me, you can afford to save 10% of your income. It's not a lot, especially given that it's a percentage based. So it doesn't really matter how much you're making. 10% is 10% for everybody. The absolute value is going to be different, but it's always 10%. And it's something very attainable and very easy to do. And every 10 months, you're essentially getting a full paycheck that you can spend on whatever you like. It's like very easy. And of course, if you're in a position where you can save up even more, let's say 20 to 30%, or even better. because this means that if you're saving on 30%, every 3 months you get almost a full paycheck. So pretty simple strategy, something that I've been using for a very long time and really, really easy to implement. Currently, I'm not using this strategy, which leads us to the second point, actually third point. And this is the current approach that I'm thinking. And this is more in line where it's a good approach if how much you're making every month tends to fluctuate and on average tends to increase over time. So instead of currently saving 10% of my income, what I do is I have a limit, a expenditure limit of how much I'm going to be spending every month. So in order to determine that limit, of course, you have to be keeping track of what is really happening with your money on a month-to-month basis. That's why, keeping track is the number one point. But once you have an idea, then you basically set up a limit and no matter how much I'm making every month, this is my limit, I will not be going over it. And this way, assuming there's some fluctuations, it doesn't really matter. Like some months you're gonna save more, some months you're gonna save less, but you will not be crossing over that limit. And the good thing there is that a lot of people, the more money they make, the more they start spending. And that's a huge problem. That's why saving is very hard. But if you have this limit and it doesn't really matter how much money you're making, you're always spending the same amount, you have your budget for the month, super easy. Like you're always saving, and in a good month, you're saving even more. On some months, you could be saving 2 or 3 times more. So that's really adds up very, very quickly. Though the biggest problem with this approach is that while you have a limit, sometimes there are some emergency that's almost impossible to predict. And those, let's say, happen every few months, every several months, or maybe there's like a very small chance that they happen like once a decade or something crazy like this. Fourth point I want to make is for this specific reason, it's a good idea to have like an emergency budget. So a separate thing that is not connected to your normal expenditure. And you want to have some guidelines. So what constitutes an emergency? Let's say you need a new laptop, your phone breaks, your car breaks, something like this. You don't want to get very, very specific because if it's an emergency, you probably have no idea to predict what's going to happen tomorrow. Like if you're in a car crash, not like this is the first thing that comes to mind. It's very hard to predict. But by having like an emergency option, so personally I don't have like an emergency fund or emergency account or something like this that's just separately reserved for those kind of events. But if you want to, you can have like an emergency savings account or something like this that's just reserved for very specific situations. The way I go about this is I have my limit every single month, but if the emergency happens, I'm willing to actually spend more than I anticipated, but it only has to be for emergency. So vacations, that's not an emergency. If it goes over my limit, I'll just simply skip it. Most of the time, like sometimes you want to still have a little bit of flexibility. Maybe you have like a vacation fund or something like this. But again, to sum up what I just said, basically you want to be keeping track of what's happening. You want to have some kind of a strategy to save up money, either percentage based or having a limit and basically saving anything on top, and have also an emergency plan as well. Pretty simple. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, and remember, the Emperor protects. Cheers.